The rain had been falling since dawn, drumming steadily against the stained glass windows of Grandma Eleanor's estate. It was the kind of cold, relentless rain that made the whole world feel heavier, as if even the sky was grieving her loss. The old Hastings mansion had always felt warm to me. It smelled of fresh, baked cinnamon bread, lavender polish, and the faint trace of Grandma's rose perfume. But that afternoon, as the family gathered for the reading of her will, the house felt different, empty, colder, haunted by her absence. I sat near the far end of the library's long mahogany table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Across from me sat my parents, their expressions stiff and unreadable. My older brother Daniel leaned back in his chair, scrolling through his phone as if this were some boring business meeting. Uncle Richard sat at the head of the table with his daughter Victoria beside him, both dressed in expensive black clothing that somehow looked more theatrical than mournful. No one spoke to me, no one had since the funeral. 3 days earlier, we had buried Grandma Eleanor Hastings, the woman who had practically raised me when my own parents were too busy chasing careers and social status to notice I existed. While the rest of the family sent expensive floral arrangements and made brief appearances at her bedside, I had been the one there every single day during her final months. I brought her meals when she was too weak to leave bed. I read her favorite mystery novels aloud when her eyesight faded. I held her hand through the long nights when pain kept her awake. She had been my safe place, my only real source of unconditional love. And now she was gone. Thank you all for coming, Mr. Whitmore, Grandma's lawyer, said as he adjusted his glasses and opened the leather folder before him. His voice echoed through the silent room. As requested by Eleanor Hastings, her final will and testament will now be read in the presence of her immediate family. The air shifted instantly. Grief was replaced by greed. I could practically feel the anticipation radiating from everyone around me. The Hastings estate was worth millions, property, stocks, priceless antiques, and Grandma's famous jewelry collection. Chief among it was the Hastings diamond necklace, an heirloom that had been passed through generations. Uncle Richard suddenly leaned forward. Before we begin, he said sharply, "There's something we need to address, mister." Whitmore frowned. "This isn't the time. The necklace is missing." The words landed like a thunderclap. My breath caught. "What?" My mother gasped. The diamond necklace was discovered missing from Eleanor's room the morning after she died. Uncle Richard said, his voice cold and deliberate. And only one person had unrestricted access to her room. Slowly, every eye in the room turned toward me. A knot tightened in my chest. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Victoria folded her arms, a smug expression creeping onto her face. "I saw you leaving Grandma's room late that night. That's because she asked me for tea," I shot back. "Convenient excuse," Daniel muttered. My pulse pounded in my ears. "I didn't take anything." Uncle Richard scoffed. "Then explain why the necklace vanished." "I don't know." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then my mother stood, her eyes locked onto mine, cold and disappointed. "You were always too attached to her valuables." I stared at her, stunned. "Mom, she trusted you too much," she snapped. "And this is how you repay her." The accusation hit harder than any slap could have. My father shook his head in disgust. "You've humiliated this family." I looked around desperately, hoping anyone would defend me. No one did. Then, just as Uncle Richard opened his mouth to continue, Mr. Whitmore raised his hand. "There is one final instruction from Eleanor Hastings before any inheritance is discussed." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small black flash drive. The room fell silent. "Mrs. Hastings requested that this video be played for all of you." He inserted it into the projector. The screen flickered to life, and as Grandma's face slowly appeared, a strange feeling settled in my chest. Hope. Grandma's face filled the projector screen, but before the video could begin, Uncle Richard shot to his feet. "Wait," he barked, holding up a hand. "Before we waste time on some sentimental recording, we need to deal with the thief sitting at this table." The room fell into a tense silence. My stomach twisted. Mr. Whitmore adjusted his glasses and frowned. "Mr. Hastings, your mother specifically instructed." She also specifically owned a diamond necklace worth nearly $500,000. Uncle Richard snapped. And now it's gone? He turned toward me, his eyes burning with accusation. Unless you'd like to explain where it is. My throat tightened. I already told you I didn't take it. Victoria let out a dramatic sigh as though she were exhausted by my lies. You were the only one staying here, she said. The rest of us visited during the day, but you practically lived in Grandma's room. That was because she needed care, I shot back. Or because you were waiting for your chance, Daniel muttered. I stared at my brother in disbelief. We had fought before, siblings always did, but I never imagined he would stand there and help destroy me. Daniel, I said quietly, you know I would never do something like this. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That's what I thought too. Those words cut deeper than he could ever understand. Then my mother rose from her chair, straightening the expensive black blazer she had worn to the funeral, as if preparing for battle. You've always been jealous, she said coldly. My chest tightened. What? Don't act surprised, she snapped. You resented this family for years because Eleanor favored you. She didn't favor me. She gave you attention because you manipulated her into believing you cared. The accusation hit me like a slap. Every memory I had with Grandma flashed through my mind late. Night talks over tea, her laughter when I burned her cookies trying to recreate her recipe, the gentle way she brushed hair from my face. When I cried after my first heartbreak, those moments had been real, they had mattered, and hearing my mother reduce them to manipulation made my stomach churn. Uncle Richard folded his arms. This doesn't need to get ugly, he said. Just confess and return the necklace. I didn't take it. My voice cracked louder than I intended. For a moment no one spoke. Then Victoria gave a mocking little laugh. Listen to how defensive she's getting. She's guilty, Daniel said flatly. The betrayal hit all over again. I looked at my father, silently begging for him to say something, anything. Instead, he looked at me with complete disappointment. You've embarrassed us enough. The room blurred as tears burned behind my eyes. I refused to let them fall, not here, not in front of people who had already decided I was guilty. Then Uncle Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. If you don't confess now, he said calmly, I'll call the police. My breath caught. You'd really do that? If that's what it takes? The threat hung in the air like a blade. I felt trapped, cornered, completely alone. Then Mr. Whitmore stood abruptly. That's enough. His voice, usually calm and measured, carried an authority that silenced everyone instantly. He stepped toward the projector and placed a hand firmly on the table. Eleanor Hastings anticipated this exact situation. He said, Uncle Richard frowned. What does that mean? Mr. Whitmore's expression hardened. It means, Mrs. Hastings left very clear instructions that this recording must be played before any accusations, claims, or inheritance discussions take place. He looked directly at Uncle Richard, and she emphasized that what you are about to see would reveal the truth. The room went still. A chill crawled down my spine. Without another word, Mr. Whitmore pressed play. The static flickered for a moment, then Grandma Eleanor's voice filled the room. If you are watching this, she said, her sharp eyes staring directly into the camera, then someone in this room has already shown exactly how far they are willing to go for my money. Every breath in the library seemed to stop, and then she smiled, the kind of knowing smile that meant she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Grandma Eleanor's face remained steady on the projector screen, her sharp gray eyes scanning the camera as if she could see every person sitting in that library. Even in the recording, she carried the same quiet authority that had always silenced a room. A chill spread through the mansion. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. If you're watching this, Grandma began, her voice calm but firm, then my family has done exactly what I expected. They've allowed greed to poison their judgment. Uncle Richard shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Victoria folded her arms tighter. I sat frozen, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Grandma's gaze seemed to lock directly onto me through the screen, and for a brief second it felt as though she were there beside me again. I know there will be accusations, she continued, and I know precisely who those accusations will be aimed at. The room became impossibly still. Grandma gave a faint, knowing smile. They will accuse the one person who stood beside me when my health failed, the one person who cared for me without expecting reward. My breath caught. I felt everyone's eyes shift toward me, and then Grandma said the words I never knew I needed to hear. To my granddaughter, Emily, if they are blaming you, know this. I know the truth. The tears I had been fighting finally burned at the corners of my eyes. Across the room, my mother's face went pale. Daniel stared at the screen in disbelief. Grandma straightened in her chair. You see, I may have been old, but I was never foolish. She nodded slightly towards someone off camera. At once, the video shifted, the screen flickered, then changed to grainy black and white footage from a hidden security camera. A gasp swept through the room. The footage showed Grandma's bedroom. The timestamp was from 2 nights before her death. And then the door opened. Uncle Richard stepped inside. Behind him came Victoria. My stomach dropped. The room erupted in whispers as the footage showed them moving through Grandma's drawers, opening jewelry boxes, searching frantically through her belongings. Then Victoria held up the Hastings diamond necklace. Even on the grainy screen, its brilliance was unmistakable. No, Victoria whispered. Her face drained of color. The footage continued. Uncle Richard leaned close to her, his voice captured clearly enough by the hidden microphone. Hide it in the East Wing. Tomorrow we tell everyone Emily stole it. Once she's discredited, no one will question the revised will. The library exploded into chaos. My mother gasped loudly. Daniel shot to his feet. My father stared at his brother, as if seeing him for the first time. This is fake, Uncle Richard shouted, leaping up so suddenly his chair crashed backward. Mr. Whitmore didn't flinch. It has already been authenticated. Victoria's breathing turned shallow and panicked. Dad, but Grandma's voice cut through the noise as the video switched back to her. I suspected forgery the moment Richard insisted on reviewing my estate documents alone. She said. Her expression hardened in a way I had rarely seen. So I revised my will privately and installed cameras. Her eyes narrowed. To those who thought they could manipulate my final wishes, you underestimated me. The room fell silent again. Then Grandma smiled softly. Emily, my dear, if you are hearing this, I want you to know how proud I am of you. The words shattered something inside me. I pressed trembling fingers against my lips. You gave me love, dignity, and comfort in my final days, she continued. Not for money, not for recognition, simply because you cared. Tears streamed freely down my face now. Across the room, my family couldn't even look at me. Grandma's voice softened further. And because loyalty deserves reward, everything I built now belongs to the one person worthy of carrying it forward. A stunned silence filled the library. Then Mr. Whitmore opened the final page of the will, and with steady certainty, he spoke the words that changed everything. Eleanor Hastings leaves her entire estate to Emily Hastings. The silence that followed Mr. Whitmore's announcement was unlike anything I had ever heard. It wasn't ordinary silence. It was the kind that crushes a room beneath its weight. For several long seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the steady rain tapping against the library windows, almost as if the storm itself had paused to witness the moment my family's world collapsed. Then Uncle Richard exploded. This is outrageous, he shouted, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. That will is fraudulent. Mr. Whitmore didn't even blink. It was revised 6 weeks ago, witnessed by 3 independent legal officials, notarized and verified this morning. That footage was fabricated. It has already been authenticated by a forensic specialist. Uncle Richard's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in my life, the man who had always controlled every room he entered looked powerless. Victoria stood so abruptly her chair scraped harshly against the wooden floor. This is her fault, she hissed, pointing directly at me. She manipulated Grandma. The accusation might have broken me an hour earlier. Now it barely registered. Because for the first time I wasn't standing alone, Grandma had spoken, and her truth had shattered every lie they had built against me. You should stop talking, Mr. Whitmore said sharply. He slid another folder across the table. Mrs. Hastings also submitted evidence of attempted fraud and theft to the authorities. They've been notified. As if summoned by his words, the heavy front doors opened. 2 uniformed police officers stepped into the library. The color drained from Victoria's face. Uncle Richard staggered backward. "This is insane," he muttered. One of the officers approached him calmly. "Richard Hastings, you'll need to come with us for questioning regarding estate fraud and theft." My uncle's confident posture crumbled. He looked around desperately, searching for support. No one moved. Not even my father. The same family who had been eager to condemn me now sat frozen, unable to defend the man who had deceived them. As the officers escorted Uncle Richard and Victoria out of the room, she twisted back to glare at me. This isn't over, but her voice lacked conviction. Deep down, she knew it was. When the doors finally closed behind them, the room felt strangely lighter. My mother was the first to speak. Emily, her voice trembled. I turned toward her. For once, she looked uncertain. Ashamed, I didn't know. I held her gaze. For years, I had longed for her approval. For years, I had hoped she would finally see me. But standing there in Grandma's library, I realized something profound. I didn't need it anymore. You believed them without question, I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. My father looked down at his hands. Daniel couldn't even meet my eyes. Their regret was real. But it was too late. Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat and handed me a sealed ivory envelope. "There is one final letter," he said softly. "For you alone." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was Grandma's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, then justice has been done. The house, the estate, and everything I leave behind are yours. But my greatest wish is not that you keep it for yourself. Turn this home into something beautiful. Build a place filled with the kindness this family forgot." Tears blurred the words, and in that moment I knew exactly what I had to do. 6 months later, the Hastings estate reopened not as a private mansion, but as the Eleanor Hastings Foundation, a home for abandoned and underprivileged children. The Grand Library became a learning center. The ballroom became a community space. Grandma's gardens were transformed into playgrounds filled with laughter. News of the transformation spread quickly. So did the story of my family's disgrace. Uncle Richard was convicted of fraud. Victoria disappeared from society circles. And the relatives who once called me a thief were left watching from the outside as everything they had tried to steal became something they could never touch. On opening day, I stood beneath the estate's front archway, smiling as children ran across the lawn. Above the entrance was a bronze plaque engraved with Grandma's favorite words, "Character is the only inheritance worth leaving behind." And for the first time in my life, I understood. The sweetest revenge wasn't destroying those who betrayed me. It was proving Grandma right about who I had always been.